Call the meeting to order. The first agenda item is just to establish a quorum and to do roll call. So we'll go ahead and do that. Start over on the left. Mark Moradone.
Here.
Maria Salazar-Spurgeon.
Here.
Deborah McIntyre.
Here.
Donna Burke.
Here.
Sid Brandon.
Here.
Jim Chawla is here. Rachel Michelle.
Here.
Glenn Calabucci.
Here.
Kirby Garcia.
Here.
Good music.
I didn't get that.
David Turetsky.
Here.
Gordon Moore.
Here.
We have established a quorum. Agenda item number 2 is the petition for reduction of penalty and early termination of probation for Dr. Gregory Tom. And I will hand things over to Judge Deborah Nyperkins.
Thank you very much. So do we have all the parties here that we need for the petition? Some things off. Madam Court Reporter, are you ready? Okay. I will open the record in the matter of the petition for reinstatement filed by Gregory Tom, the Stairs Office of Administrative Hearings, case number 080169. Today's date is August 26, 2016, and we are in Irvine, California. My name is Deborah Nyperkins. I am an administrative law judge with the State of California's Office of Administrative Hearings and not affiliated with the Board of Optometry. And I'm sitting here today with the board that's just made a quorum, or discussed that there was a quorum, to consider your petition for reinstatement. May I take appearance for the record, please, beginning with the Attorney General's office?
Good morning, Your Honor. Anahita Crawford, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the state.
Thank you, Ms. Crawford. And do we have anyone representing you today?
Yes, good morning, Your Honor and Board. Craig Steinberg, and I am counsel representing Dr. Tom.
Thank you. Okay, so how we're going to proceed today, how we're going to proceed, is obviously the burden of proof is on you to establish that you're entitled to have your license reinstated. Typically, I will have the Deputy Attorney General present jurisdictional documents and then provide her statement, and then I will allow you to do the same. And both parties are allowed to have any witness testimony, cross-examination, etc. So with that, Ms. Crawford, do you have a packet, I assume?
I do, Your Honor. And I have provided one to Dr. Steinberg as well.
Great.
And thank you, Your Honor. Just for clarity, you said reinstatement a couple of times. It's an early termination. Termination
of, yes, I apologize for that. Early termination of probation. I'm getting mixed up. Thank you. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is mark the documents before we get started. And I know that we both have packets, and I'm assuming the board has received the documents. So under the first tab, we have what appears to be the certification of license history. Is that correct, Ms. Crawford?
Yes, Your Honor.
I'll mark that as Exhibit 1. It bears base numbers AGO 001 and 002. Under the next tab, this appears to be the petition for early termination of probation, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And I'll mark that as Exhibit 2. And I note it also has attachments with it as well, and it is base marked AGO 003 through AGO 044. The next tab, Ms. Crawford, maybe you can tell me what that is for simplicity.
Your Honor, the next tab is the underlying pleadings in this case. It consists of the accusation, the stipulated surrender of license, the subsequent order granting reinstatement of the license, and an order denying the reduction of penalty of termination. There's also an order denying the petition for reconsideration and a petition to revoke probation. There's an order revoking the license and an order denying the petition for reconsideration of that revocation. There's an order granting petition for reinstatement and an order denying a petition for reconsideration. I believe that might have actually, that's a duplicate on the exhibit list. And the last exhibit is an order denying petition for reduction of penalty and or termination.
You mean the last document under that tab 3?
Correct, yes,
Okay.
thank
I'm
you.
going to mark all of that as Exhibit 3. It begins AGO 045 and continues on through base number AGO 107. Are there any further documents that need to be marked?
No, Your Honor.
There you go.
Okay. With that, Ms. Crawford, would you like to provide a statement?
Yes, Your Honor. The respondent's license, or excuse me, the petitioner's license was issued on September 22nd of 1994. On March 26th of 2007, the accusation was filed. It alleged that from 2001 to 2003, the petitioner submitted fraudulent or improper billings to VSP totaling approximately $85,000. The audit by VSP revealed that petitioner billed for lenses that were not provided Plano gray 3 lenses when prescription lenses were ordered and billed for, inflating amounts billed for medically necessary contact lenses, and double billing for lenses, double billing insurance plans, switching dates of service, changing patients' date of birth to support billing, inflating frame costs, and overcharging patients for options, and billing Plano sunglasses as frame only. On April 3, 2008, petitioner surrendered his license and was ordered to pay $11,000 in costs. On January 1, 2010, petitioner's license was reinstated on 5 years probation. He had paid almost all of the VSP amount. I believe he had paid about $75,000 at that point. His terms included probation, restricted and supervised employment by a board-approved optometrist, and requiring him to inform the board in writing of any change of place of practice. On November 19, 2010, the petitioner filed a petition for early termination, and on August 16th of 2011, his petition was denied, and his reconsideration was denied as well, because it was discovered during that hearing that the petitioner had performed optometry services at local colleges for compensation from schools, as well as from the students, without reporting the work to the board. He was also not supervised during this work, as was required by probation. Additionally, when he wrote checks to reimburse the colleges for the compensation he had received, he wrote them for amounts greater than what he was paid and wrote donation on the checks, which gave concern to the board that he was seeking to derive a tax benefit from reimbursing the colleges. Therefore, the board sought to revoke the respondent's probation, which was granted on August 29, 2012, and his license was revoked, based on failures to follow the conditions of probation. Additionally, the court took into consideration as part of its decision that, quote, respondent chose to quibble with VSP over the remaining amount of restitution he owed, saying that he was in the right. That was not his right, as the board's order regarding the amount of restitution he owed was a final order. Therefore, petitioner's petition for reconsideration was also denied. On December 11th of 2013, petitioner's license was reinstated. It was placed on probation for 5 years, and he was required to take and pass the law exam, participate in community service, identify a worksite monitor, and take an ethics class. On January 23rd of 2015, petitioner requested early termination of probation and was denied. While he testified that he had learned from his mistakes and was extremely remorseful, his testimony, the board found, was identical in content and tone as prior appearances before the board, and when the board had provided him the opportunity, petitioner's conduct failed to comport with those prior assurances, as evidenced by the need to file a petition to revoke probation. Therefore, petitioner was not deemed reliable, and his petition was denied in January of 2015. On April 25th of 2016, petitioner has again filed a petition for early termination, which is before you today. His petition includes letters of recommendations from his employer, colleagues, and friends. He has completed and passed the law exam. He has taken an ethics class. He has conducted community service by establishing a free clinic. He's volunteered at schools and become glaucoma certified, and has participated in continuing education. I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Steinberg?
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'd like to ask some direct examination questions.
Okay,
about Tom.
in that case, I'm going to place him under oath before we get started. Mr. Tom, could you please raise your right hand for me? Do you swear to the penalty of perjury to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth this hearing today?
Yes.
And Mr. Tom, if you could you please state and spell, I have it, but I'd ask you to do it as well. Could you state and spell your full name for me?
Gregory Tom, Gregory. Last name Tom, T-O-M.
And Dr. Tom, what is your current age?
49.
Thank you.
Okay, so Dr. Tom, as you heard counsel describe, 2008, you stipulated to the surrender of your license. Can you describe to the board and tell the board what led to that 2008 license surrender?
That surrender was based on an event that happened in 2001, 2002, where VSP audited my office and found improper billing, where I had overbilled patients and substituted lenses for patients.
And that was approximately how much money did you repay to VSP?
$85,000.
And did you stop becoming a VSP provider at that time?
Yes, in 2002 I was no longer a provider.
And have you been a provider of other vision care plans and insurance companies since then?
Yes.
Were you ever audited by any of those plans?
Yes. And yes, I was audited by all the plans every year.
And what was the outcome of those audits?
Everything was fine. There was no discrepancies at all in the insurance plan.
Now, in 2010, your license was reinstated, as we heard, you were put on 5 years probation. Then in 2011, the board sought to revoke that probation, and they did revoke the probation. Can you describe what happened that led to your probation being revoked in 2011?
Yes, I had performed my employment. We required that I be monitored, and I had performed exams at these colleges unmonitored, and I did not notify the board of optometry or my probation officer that I was actually performing that work.
And as you recall, was there anything else that came up in the course of that probation revocation proceeding?
With regards to...
There was an issue with VSP, was there not?
Oh, yes. Counselor mentioned that I had not paid the full restitution to VSP. And I did pay it. I should have just paid it to begin with right away. I hadn't paid it in a timely manner. And rather than debate the procedures or the billing procedures, what I should have done was just paid it in full. I eventually did pay it in full.
Now, in that time period after your license was revoked in 2011, your probation was revoked and license gone. What exactly did you do?
Well, I changed fields and I went to work in the banking business industry. I also continued to teach at the elementary schools. I went to schools and would teach the students about the eye. I would dissect cow eyes for them as part of their science programs because the schools where I went, they couldn't afford it. So I would purchase these eyes myself and take them there and teach the kids about it in a couple sessions. I also, during that time, when I was not licensed and working in the banking business, I still continued my continuing education also for optometry.
And the children that you were teaching, what were the ages, the grades?
Anywhere from 3 all the way up to probably 13 years, 12, 13 years of age.
A lot of different classrooms.
Correct.
And are you still doing that?
Yes.
And what schools?
In the San Lorenzo Unified School District, that they have various schools I go to in the district. And, you know, if they have a if they have time, they would ask me to come in.
Are you paid or compensated for that?
Not at all.
In December 2013, you were granted reinstatement of your license, correct?
Yes.
Put back on 5 years probation?
Yes.
And since the beginning of that probation period, have you been in compliance with all the terms and conditions of your probation?
Completely.
Have you violated probation in any respect?
Not at all.
Now, with respect to being an optometrist, what have you been doing since your license was reinstated, say, at the beginning of 2014?
I've been working part-time for general ophthalmologists, one of which I worked for a short period of time. I performed all their pre and post-op for LASIK treatment, and that's all they did was just LASIK and laser procedures. After that, I moved to another ophthalmologist part-time who was looking for an optometrist for 6 months, just general ophthalmology, so general eye exams and pre and post-operative care. And I was on call for a few optometrists, as needed if they were sick or if they were on vacation. And currently, I'm employed by an ophthalmologist. I'm working part-time, just a general ophthalmology, providing post and pre-op care after their cataract surgeries and just general eye exams.
Has your work been full-time or part-time?
Part-time.
And have you attempted to obtain full-time work?
Yes, I have. The entire time I've been on probation, I've attempted to try to full-time work, whether it be working for 1 doctor, 2 doctors, 3 doctors. It's just very difficult because of my probationary status.
And what do you mean by that?
Well, most employers, optometrists or ophthalmologists, they would like their doctors to be on their panels so they can see patients. But my stipulation on my probation is that I have to be monitored. So because I'm on probation, I have to be monitored. That means the doctor has to oversee every chart, has to be looked at, signed off. But the more important thing is that they have to basically, they have to kind of almost see my patient with me. And so they would like me to be on their panels because they don't have to necessarily see that exact patient.
When you say be on their panels, can you explain what you mean?
It being most all the doctors, and I'm sure the doctors here know that to be a doctor to see that patient and sign off on that patient, you have to be a panel, meaning that you have to be a member of that panel. The doctor has to be accepted on that insurance plan. And being that I'm on probation, I'm banned from almost every single panel. They just don't allow you, a probationary doctor, to be on the panels.
Okay, so now, you mentioned monitoring.
Yes.
Can you describe, give some sense and detail of the monitoring that you've had for, we're approaching 3 years, it'll be 3 years this December.
Yeah, so Dr. Jin Young is my doctor and monitor, so he has to meet with me on a regular basis. He has to monitor monthly the exam records that of patients that I see of whoever is employing me. And he has to visit the sites that I actually work at. So I'm in constant contact with him. And he basically reviews almost, on a regular basis, the majority of my charts.
Now, going back, you were also monitored under your prior probation, the probation that was revoked, correct?
Yes.
So for about how long, there was a gap, obviously, when you lost your license, but for about how long has your optometric care been subject to monitoring?
Since 2010, with the exception of the gap.
And have you had any problems with respect to the monitoring that have been identified, anything of that nature?
No, not at all with regards to monitoring.
Now, going outside of your practice as an optometrist, since the beginning of 2014, what kind of activities have you been engaged in
Outside of optometry?
outside of optometry?
Well, I've started a free clinic in the area that I work at. It's an underprivileged area where I do my volunteer optometry work. And one of the challenges of my probation was the requirement to do optometry volunteer services. It was very hard. Now, the probation status prevented me from being employed was one thing. I didn't expect to encounter this, to volunteer my services and to make up for and atone for what I had done. I had this huge roadblock. I wasn't allowed to volunteer. The boards at a lot of the volunteer places voted to not let me volunteer. So that was really humbling experience because I couldn't even donate my services. And so luckily, I found somebody who was willing to listen. It's called Rotacare, and it's a place in San Leandro, California. And the director says, well, what do you do? And I guess they see a lot of patients who are immigrants from the area, a lot of people who do not have insurance. So that's one of the requirements, you can't have insurance. And she listened to me, and I told her, listen, I would like to provide these services for you. And she said, well, we don't have any eye care clinic. I said, well, if you had one, would you allow me to do it? And she says, well, if we had one, we could use one. We just don't have one. We don't have access. I said, you have no referrals anywhere? She goes, we don't. And so I said, well, how about if I create an eye care clinic for you and you allow me to volunteer my services? And so she allowed me to do that. And so I provided the equipment, the exam room equipment, from the chair to the phoropters, which is where you do the prescriptions, to the tonometry to detect for the glaucoma, to the equipment you use to look inside the eye. I provided all of that for them. And so since then, I've been seeing patients there. And then I've also been working with youth groups in my community, whether it be through the Catholic Youth Organization or another nonprofit that I work for. I've been working for the First Tee, which I've continued to do since 2009, which is another nonprofit. We teach them about golf and a sport, say basketball, and part of the teaching is you teach them about life skills, about respect, and responsibility, and perseverance, and life skill traits they can take beyond just that sport. In addition to that, I've also been, as I said earlier, volunteering at local schools and helping out the local schools also for educational purposes.
Going back to the First Tee and the teaching of life skills, do you talk to the kids there about the problems you've had?
Actually, that's kind of one of the rehabilitation processes. I think, even though at the time my first probation and I had it revoked, I don't think I took it. I didn't realize that I probably needed the life skills as much as I was teaching. And so it's an education process to even get to teach there. You have to actually go through processes of classes and education. And so I had to tell the students I made mistakes and that, you learn from your mistakes. And so I think a lot of kids, they look up to that, like, oh, this guy's telling me something that he made a mistake and he's atoning for his mistake. And that, I guess my role was to teach them that also and to kind of admit to not necessarily to the child that you can make mistakes, but if you make yourself better from that mistake, that's what's most important, because we're all going to make mistakes.
Okay, now about a year and a half ago, you sought early termination of this probation, right?
Yes.
And that request was denied?
Yes.
And I believe the board indicated that it felt you failed to demonstrate rehabilitation. Do you recall that?
Yes.
So can you tell us why you believe today, now a year and a half later, that you are rehabilitated?
Yes. I realize now that the mistakes I had made, I think I was more not really accepting of all of the blame. A good example would be, when the state had brought up the fact that I did not pay my VSP bill in full. I should have just paid it. I made a mistake. It was a mistake that I made. So that's one thing I realized, to atone for your actions immediately. But I think I've been rehabilitated also because, I'm a lot older than when this started. This started in 2001, 2002. That's 15 years. Since my probation started the first time, it was 2010. But I actually started the actions of that process in 2009. So it's been 5 years, almost 50. And I think as I've gotten older, I've become wiser. I think everybody does. But wiser in the respect that I think I've learned from my mistakes. My actions, I think, rather than my words, have shown that I'm committed to being a better person, and I've become a better person from it. And I think faced with those challenges again and those decisions, I don't think I would ever come close to making those mistakes again.
So I think obviously one of the concerns of the board would be that you not make those mistakes again. And can you tell the board, if left unsupervised, if your probation is terminated early, how can they be sure?
You know, I guess a good analogy would be, let's say I'm in a spot here, there's an X in the floor, and if I stood in that spot, I got hit with a board. Being rehab, not being rehab means I probably would have stood in that spot again, gotten hit with the board again. I'm tired of being in that spot and tired of being hit. I'm older, I think I'm a lot smarter, wiser, and I don't want to make those mistakes anymore. I don't think I'm going to make mistakes. For 5 years now, 3 years now, almost 3 years this December, I've been in full compliance. And when the incidents at the colleges came up in 2010, 2011, I immediately stopped doing it. But that means that it's been almost 5 years since then, so it's almost equivalent of 5 years of probation I've been on in 2 different forms. I think it just took me longer to realize that I didn't want to get hit anymore. I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to be in this position to see you again. I would rather be in a position to shake your hand outside of this at an event or a educational seminar.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Crawford, cross-examination.
Thank you. Dr. Tom, you mentioned that you have had your records audited in the past by other plans as well.
Yes.
And what time period are we talking about?
Up until my license until I surrendered my license, or I stopped practicing in 2006.
Oh, okay. So VSP was the only insurance that identified issues with your billing during their audit?
Correct.
When did you ultimately pay the full restitution amount to VSP?
I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe it was somewhere in when my probation first started in 2010.
So it was in 2012 that the court, during your petition to revoke probation, commented that you were quibbling with VSPs. So had you already fully paid VSP at the time of that hearing?
I believe I actually did, yes.
Okay. Now, you also said that you have worked for optometrists, and on some occasions you also worked in an on-call capacity.
Correct.
And how many optometrists did you work for in that capacity?
I believe 3.
Okay. And what period of time?
From 2000 and, you mean the on-call ones, correct?
Yes.
From 2000, let's see, my probation was 2014 to current.
So do you still work in an on-call capacity for some of those 3 doctors?
Yes.
And have you provided their information to the board?
Yes.
How do you ensure that you are complying with your probation and working as a supervised employee when you're in an on-call status?
Well, the doctors review the charts, all the charts when they're completed.
But there isn't a doctor that's present while you're seeing the patients.
Correct.
And is it your understanding that that's compliant with your probation term for being a supervised employee?
Yes, because I have to gain permission from the board first. So I usually contact my board representative prior to commencing. And I've talked to them about, they have told me what it would be allowed to work as a supervised optometrist and what is not, because I've had positions in the past that were not approved that I did not take the positions of because they told me I could not work there.
And when you seek out a staff member's, when you consult with them in order to determine whether you can work at that particular site, have you also informed them that this is on an on-call basis?
Yes, it would be on-call basis, part-time. I would say that the person I talk to all the time is Jessica Sieferman. She was my monitor at the time, and she's conversed with me several times on what employments I could not take and what I could take.
Since your petition for reinstatement of probation or reinstatement of your license was granted in 2013, what patient billing services have you provided to any of the individuals that you work for?
I don't do any billing. I'm not allowed to, but I don't do it for them. Once I see the patient, my job is to see the patient.
Okay. So since being reinstated, you have not performed any kind of billing work?
No, I don't do any billing work.
Have you apprised yourself of the current trends or laws related to billing and insurances?
Can you clarify that a little bit more for me?
Since you haven't done any billing work since 2013, have you done any kind of research or availed yourself of any resources that would help you feel comfortable that once you're back billing patients, you would be doing that appropriately and lawfully?
I would say that, how would I answer that? Let me think. I pay attention to what is current out there from just looking to see what's happening at educational meetings. But most likely, if I was fully reinstated and allowed to come back, I would anticipate I would actually take a class, whether it be from the insurance company or an educational class.
As part of continuing education, is appropriate billing something that is offered?
Yes.
So that's the class that you would take if your probation was terminated?
Correct.
Is that what you're seeking today, is a termination of probation?
Yes.
Since that was the basis for the accusation against you in the first place, why haven't you taken any courses relating to patient billing?
Because my probation didn't require me, it just didn't require me to actually participate in any billing services. my concentration was to, first of all, try to find employment to satisfy my probation. And that was my main struggle because I didn't want to violate any of my probationary terms. And that was a huge, because it affected two areas. It affected my ability to practice. I had to satisfy a certain amount of hours, the minimum hours I had to meet just as a working optometrist. And that was very, very challenging. Currently right now, I work 12 hours a week. That's it. And then I volunteer. And that's how and my volunteer optometry services combined with that allow me to meet my minimum requirements. And at one time I was very, very worried about not even being able to provide the volunteer optometry services because of the barrier to entry into that field based on my probationary status. So my concentration has been to really, really show the board that I'm 100% compliant and that my priority is to show you that I can be compliant and I can follow the rules and regulations and stipulations and that you don't have to worry about it.
What is the status of the free eye clinic that you helped establish?
The status of it, it's still operation, I'm still there.
And what is your long-term plan for that clinic?
That's a good question. And so if the board in their decision allows me to have my license fully reinstated, I'd ask for a letter of recommendation from this director that I established, and she'd asked me, does that mean you're not working for us anymore? I said, by no means. I said, as I stated earlier, I think I needed that as much as the community needed me. My intention is to continue at that clinic. In fact, I was just approached, I work with a lot of other medical doctors there, and because of the community, being a low-income community, and there's a lot of patients who require other medical care, but that medical care affects their eyes, whether it be diabetes or glaucoma, high blood pressure. So now other clinics in the area, which I didn't know about, they've actually met with me and asked, well, can you see other patients that we send you from other clinics outside the area because they don't have access to our clinic. So the reputation of this free clinic has grown. And it's a great place, and at some point, I'd like to work full-time, but I still plan on doing this job. I think it's extremely rewarding, and somebody needs to be there, whether it be, and I think that person needs to be me.
So you plan to continue to volunteer your time at the clinic?
Oh, yes.
I have no other questions.
Do any of the board members have any questions?
So, looking at the order from 2015 denying your reduction of the probation, the board at the time was concerned about your honesty. I'd like to hear your thoughts or response to that concern, because that would be a similar concern for this board.
Mr. Radami, that's a great question, and I think a very valid one. And like you stated, the board was concerned about that before. And I think if I look at all the things I've been through for the last 15 years, the good things, the bad things, the mistakes, like I stated earlier, I think I've learned a great deal by going through this process and being on probation a different amount of times, having it revoked, having it reinstated. Being a role model for not just the adults, but for the children. I think I take a lot of pride in my volunteer services. And some of the core values, like one of the life skills that we teach is honesty. Being able to admit to a child, let alone my peers in public, that I made a mistake. It was a very hard thing to go through, but I think it's a very important thing, and it helped me to grow as a person. But I think it's an extremely good role model, not only for myself and my family and my children, but to the community, to show that you made this mistake, you admitted the mistake, you were honest about the mistake, you did do that. I did do those things that you guys read about. I've never denied it. I think that, plus the actions, show my sincerity to the board and to the public that I'm more than capable to return and not have to be monitored. There's one additional thing I'd like to add, is that this other organization I work for, it's also a nonprofit, and just what I'm doing for this, it's a team of players that I take to events to play basketball, and I'm their coach, and I've actually set up a thing where we actually take the children to a food bank. This is happening not this month, next month, where we're going to help sort and provide food for homeless people in Contra Costa County, which is a different county. I had to get the approval from the director of the nonprofit, and I sent an email to the parents just the other day, and they were just wonderful. They just thought it was a great thing. So I didn't have to do that. I think it's something now that I've learned to do. I don't think, honestly, I would have done that before. If this had happened, I don't think I would have done that. I may have volunteered, but not in the same capacity now. I think just now I'm just a changed person. I will respect myself. I'll respect the environment. I'll respect you guys. I mean, I just think I do things differently, and I look at things differently. I don't have to think about being honest. I think that's the way I am now. I hope that answers your question.
One more question. You mentioned classroom visits doing the
Bovine eye.
bovine
Yeah.
eye from ages 3 to 13. How many classroom visits would that have been?
I think it's throughout the year. It's random throughout the year. Maybe 13, 14 visits.
I have no further questions.
Is anyone else have a question? Okay, please.
Dave Turetsky, professional member. Dr. Tom, who monitors the work that you do at the Rotacare Clinic?
Dr. Hiramatsu, who is the medical director there.
Is Dr. Hiramatsu an optometrist or an ophthalmologist?
No, she's a general ophthalmologist, and also Dr. Young, who is my optometrist, probation, who is my posture monitor. He is also aware of the activities that I do there.
Are you? I just looked at the board's website and I saw there was no statement of licensure for the Rotacare Clinic. Was that approved that way? With their probation?
Yeah, it was approved by the board. Jessica Sieferman approved that to happen. And I don't know, but I don't believe I was required for a statement of licensure and to volunteer my services there. Jessica and I talked about it, which is, we've gone over when I should have my statement of licensure, what places I should have it at, and I don't think that was ever brought up that I had to obtain
But the
that.
board was fully aware that you were working at.
Oh yes, they had to approve all, that had to be approved because it was one of the mandated stipulations of my probation.
And one other question, kind of getting back to that honesty thing that there's
Sure.
a concern over. When your license was revoked, where were you working at that time?
In Pleasanton, at a private optometry office.
Was that Dr. Chin's office?
Yes, Dr. Rapperchin.
I remember when you were testifying in front of the board several years back, and Dr. Chin was there as a witness for you, and it was brought up at the time that when you lost your license and patients would call to make an appointment with you, he had mentioned that you and he agreed that you wouldn't say that your license had been revoked, but that you would just say that you were on medical leave.
Correct.
See an issue with that from an honesty standpoint?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. And what happened to Dr. Chin? Do you know what came?
You know what, Dr. Tutsky, I have not worked for him since that time.
He was cited by the board for that, paid a fairly large fine for disseminating false and misleading information to the public. Just, it goes to that honesty issue. I personally have absolutely no issue at all with your clinical competency. I've seen nothing here that leads me to think that you would be anything less than a very good clinician. I have serious reservations about the honesty factor, and as I said when you came before the board about a year and a half ago, you seem to be pretty good at asking for forgiveness, but not really great at asking for permission. And I just don't know what you could say at this point to make me think that, you know, this would have all been done and over with 2 years ago if you just followed the terms of your regular probation. It would have been done over and you'd be on with things. It's just really tough to think that you're just asking for a pass at this point and go back to doing what you've been doing. And I don't know what you could do to convince me otherwise. What could you do to convince me otherwise?
Well, Dr. Tutsky, 2012, 2016, 4 years have passed since then. And like I stated earlier, I think I've grown as a person since then. You've already said it. I'm here to present to you guys verbally, but my actions for the past 4 years, I'm in complete compliance. I've admitted my shortcomings to you all. I've admitted it to people that I've educated, children, adults. I have to ask them. They have to know if I'm going to teach them. I have to admit that. I think before, when everything happened, I think my natural reaction was to be, very defensive. And I think now it's more of it admitting that I did do that. And it's really, really important. And the fact that I've gone, not just done what was required of me. I could have done the minimum, but I don't do the minimum. I've done well beyond and more. If you look back at what I've done and you look at the terms of both probations, I've actually continued to fulfill both of them. I didn't have to do the non-optometric volunteer service. That wasn't required. I've continued to do that because I like to do it and I enjoy it. I didn't have to do this thing with the nonprofit to take it to the food bank. I think that's the person I am now. That's what I'm trying to show you all, is that the person you saw 4 years ago when I last presented to you, the person is different now. And I'm asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the board's forgiveness to let me have the opportunity to return to my communities and work in a capacity that I can continue to contribute on a full capacity basis. To be honest with you, Dr. Tutsky, I'd love to see you at another. I never want to see you here again. I don't.
Well, my appointment's up in another 6 months.
Regardless, if you did not, I don't want to see you again. And it's in light of the situation. It's not a fun thing being here. There's a person here I've known since probably 1994, and I don't want to see them in this setting again. It's a humbling experience. It's one, not to be able to have somebody not give you work and try to find a job. It's another to be every day. I didn't share this with all of you, but when I go for a job interview, you can apply online, you can look at it. And I go by there sometimes, I see who's working there. And I go well, I could do that job. And a lot of times I'm given an interview, and I'd say probably 1 out of 10 jobs I provide before I get the interview. When I do get it, I get questions like what you've asked me, because they have to read this whole pamphlet that you have. One of their stipulations, they have to read it and sign it, that they've read it, that the employer has to do. I get chastised and reprimanded then. Why did you do it? I live through this every single month. It's a very harsh reminder of a mistake that you made. It's going to live with me for the rest of my life. You know, so do I want my 10-year-old to be like his dad? In a lot of ways, yes, but in some ways, not even close. You know, I don't want him to make the same mistakes that I made. I'm very, very cautious and letting him grow, but I don't want him to make that mistake. So I'm really careful about what errors I've made to make sure that I try to create a better path. So if hopefully by hearing me and getting to know me a little bit better and seeing what I've done, you realize that you won't have to worry about that statement specifically because of what I've been through and I've changed a lot. So I'm asking the board's permission for forgiveness. That's really what I'm asking for. Thank you.
Any further questions? Any follow-up?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Crawford?
Just briefly, if the board were to modify your probation, where you were not required to be an employee, a supervised employee, but could in fact practice for yourself, bill patients, have your own practice, do you think that you would be able to provide the confidence that Dr. Tereski is looking for and show an honest practice?
It's an interesting question you asked that. The answer I think is yes, but it's also, there's a catch to it because I won't have to worry about insurance billing because I won't be on insurance plans.
Because of your probation
Because I'm on
status?
probation. The board specifically states when they look at my license, I'm on probation. So basically my status would be exactly the same as it is now. I won't be involved in billing.
And that's something that you're certain of, that no insurance plans would accept a practitioner on probation?
I know that for certain because even my current employer, the ophthalmologist, he wants me to work more, but I can't help see patients because he has a person that we've tried already to sign up on all the insurance plans. And the stipulation is until your probation is removed, you're on probation until the board removes your probation. I'm kind of stuck.
Thank you, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, if there are no other questions, are there any further witnesses to testify today?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so that leaves us with the documents. Are there any objections to the admissions of Exhibits 1, 2, and 3?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibits 1, 2, and 3 are admitted. Ms. Crawford, would you like to provide a closing?
Yes, Your Honor. The petitioner's case with the board started 9 years ago in 2007. He surrendered his license, and in 2010, his license was reinstated. 10 months later, he petitioned for an early termination, which was denied. He was on probation for 2 of his 5-year term when the board discovered violations and terminated his probation in 2012. In 2013, respondent's license was reinstated again on 5 years. After 1 year of probation, petitioner sought to terminate his probation, which was denied, and he is seeking a termination of his probation again today, having completed approximately 2.5 years of his 5-year term. Submitted, Your Honor.
Briefly, Your Honor, and Board, I think the context of time is relevant here because the original bad acts, if you will, with VSP, that goes back 15 years. We're here today, I think, more because of the 2010-2011 community college issue. So that goes back 5 years. We have a doctor who let his words and body language and all of those aspects of a presentation speak for themselves. I would just ask that the board consider, it's 2.5 years since this probation began, but the conduct out of which this probation arose is now about 5 years ago. And so he's demonstrated, I believe, a consistent behavior of compliance and more for approximately 5 years, although this probation period is only 2.5 years. And so in the context of time, the doctor asked a difficult question. He basically asked, how does one prove that they're honest? It's really easy to prove dishonesty because one bad act kind of does it. And there's really no amount of good acts that prove honesty. Time is the only measure, I think. And so facing the difficulty of proving honesty, all we can look at is how Dr. Tom presents himself, his sincerity, whether he's believable or not. The reason, as any lawyer would know, the reason we have witnesses come and testify at trial is because it's really the only way to judge honesty. The jury sits there and decides whether or not they believe the person is telling the truth or not, based on how they answer the questions, their fidgeting, where they look, and all of those intangible aspects. And so that's why Dr. Tom is here today, is to sit in front of you and try and show you that he's honest, he's learned. He's almost 50 years old. I don't know how many of you are 50. I'm not going to venture a guess, but I'm 58. And I've got a brother-in-law that's going to pass away probably today. You know, that mortality starts to kick in. And it does change. Nothing further behind it.
Thank you very much. With that, if there's nothing else to add, I will be closing the record here in just a moment. As you know, the board will be meeting in closed session, and at some point after the board makes a decision, you'll receive a written decision thereafter. So with that, the matter is submitted and the record is closed. And if you'd like to wait for a copy of the court report form, I can get that for you in just a moment. Yes.
Like, was that 6 or 7?
I don't know. I worked in years, and I hope.
And I hate to, haven't seen you in eons.
So just all having
I've done some. I still like it.
Yay.
I feel like I should get that every time I want it.
You should.
All right, so we will, we'll start our closed session really at this point. So we're reconvening the closed session, and all members are present, so you still have an established quorum. So we're on agenda item number 4, which is for public comment for items not on the agenda. Any comments from the public for anything that's not on the agenda today? For future stuff? No. Comments? Seeing no comments, we'll move on to agenda item 5, which is the president's report. So we've already introduced ourselves, but I actually would like to hear Ruby Garcia to introduce herself because she's the server for the meeting. So,
Hi, I'm Ruby, and I work at Sam's Club at this time. And I'm working on a really good project I want to share with the board, and that is to open a 2-year career program for opticians.
What? We didn't hear you because they're.
Oh. I'm excited to share with the board. I work with Sam's Club Optical. I am the manager there. Been there for 9 years, but I've been as an optician over 20 years. And I'm excited to share with the board one of my exciting projects I've been working for. It will be 5 years by the time it opens. 2-year degree program at Moore Park Community College for opticians. So it'll be one of those degree programs. I sort of reestablished because there was one open before, but this one we're going to push it to make sure it stays open.
well, welcome. And Jessica, Secret our Executive Officer, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce any board staff.
With us, we have Joanne Stacy. She is our new policy analyst. Rob Stephanopoulos couldn't join us today. His wife is expecting a baby at any second. And has to stay within an hour from her. So he's not here today.
And then
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kurt Epler. I'm Senior Supervising Counsel with the Department of Consumer Affairs.
I actually didn't ask if any members of the public want to introduce themselves. Does anyone wish to introduce themselves? You can remain anonymous, it's fine. All right. So agenda item, or topic B, these are the dates. We've already discussed the dates and locations. They're just out there for everyone to kind of just know when the dates are for the remainder of this year and for next calendar year.
Question on the 26th, is that just going to be for officers, is that the whole board? Oh, yeah. So this is a 2-day board meeting. Okay.
Can I have a comment? I'm curious as to, if we're doing a strategic planning meeting with Solid, why the meeting is down in Southern California and not in Sacramento? Because
We're
they're
talking about meeting that too.
are we talking about that now?
She's talking about.
Okay, do we need to vote on it? Well, it just seems like sometimes I feel like we can't seem to get this meeting schedule thing together. And I really want to know why we can't be like some of the other boards where they plan out almost a year or two in advance. It's on the website. It's usually San Diego, LA, Orange County, Sacramento, Bay Area. And if we keep the same locations, because looking at this, it seems like we're meeting a lot in Southern California, and that's not in the best interest of the public.
I think it's because we have so much in Sacramento for the past year and a half, but we used up.
So, but I just
We
think
used to do 2 Southern California, 1 Bay Area, and 1 Sacramento.
or can we get onto more of a schedule where it's different, like San Diego? Why haven't we gone on to San Diego? I'm just asking.
We can research going in San Diego. We look at cost too, because the cost to incur when we're flying everybody to site to San Diego. But we can look.
Because I just think having it on, I know for me, when I go out and speak, I'm always talking about public engagement and come to the board meetings. And then this meeting in particular, we already had a children's vision meeting scheduled for yesterday in Sacramento, and we had to change that to September because the board meeting got changed to down here. So I just feel like we need to have some structure and keep it consistent so that members of the public know where we're meeting. And it seems like we're always switching. It just doesn't seem like there's a consistent schedule. And
Well,
I'd
that
like
was
to
the
see that.
intent of doing this, right, just putting it out for the next year.
Well, that's fine. I'm just, but now we're changing it already to move the January meeting back to Sacramento. So I just would like to see consistency. I'd like to see it on the website where it stays like it is like the med board or dental board, where it's quarterly in different parts of the state that we can all plan too, because for some of us, we have to make childcare arrangements and family changes and work, and it just seems like everything's changing too much for a board that should be consistent.
This way, two petitioners and disciplinary cases have an idea of where we'll be when, so we're not forcing undue hardship for those who have financial obligations to meet, especially those who, like we've met before, have requests for early termination, and it's just a financial hardship to keep flying down for 3 meetings in a row to Southern California if they're up in Northern.
Can I ask a question on that, just procedurally with meeting locations? Somebody like Dr. Tom, who we just had, lives up in the Bay Area, lives up in San Ramon. If he, for some reason, could not have been here today, there's no way that he could have called in, is there? Because there's no board member at his location?
It's more of there's a couple things. It's more of a function of the agency meets itself, and theoretically, one of the things that the board does when it makes its decisions on petitions for reinstatement sitting before the agency itself is it sort of judges the credibility of, in fact, the witness, and that's somewhat difficult to do remotely when you can't see the petitioner. So that's generally why petition hearings, again, not on the nuts, a little bit on the nuts and bolts. It's kind of a situation where you tell the petitioner, listen, we're going to be in southern, San Diego, essentially. If you live in San Diego, you can wait till there, or you can incur your own expense and come on and see us in Oakland or San Diego or wherever. So that's why.
I mean, I think that's the point of looking at where we meet, because if someone lives in San Diego, they're having to incur personal expenses to travel, even if it's just to Orange County or LA or Northern California. And I think that's, I know that part of our job is to be accessible to licensees all over the state of California. And I just think it's, important that we make that effort. Or even Riverside. I mean, Inland Empire is another location to look, but it just seems like we need to broaden our base in order to be more accessible to the public and to people who need to petition the board.
So my understanding now that the January meeting, if it's a consensus that we want to move back to Sacramento, is that what I'm understanding?
Well, because it's 2 days, so it would be at DCA, correct, in there? So I think it makes sense, because wouldn't we have to pay for DCA to fly down here?
Yeah.
And that would be more expensive? And we have another idea, right, Dr. Calrici, when we get to children's vision?
Okay, but just as a legal matter, so the second bullet under item B is the January 26, 27 Southern California meeting. Just, it's my understanding that the board is going to keep those same dates, but is considering relocating or moving that meeting to the Sacramento area at our headquarters. Okay.
All right, so.
Do we have to vote on that? So it's in the minutes?
Respectfully, I would suggest it may be advisable just to kind of cement that, and you may want to entertain a motion to, in fact, move that meeting to Northern California if that's the one to the board, just because we have it sort of a discussion brewing here.
Just one last comment as to the other locations. I mean, someone mentioned Riverside within Lincoln Park. Have we had any comments from the public saying, gee, we'd like to have a meeting someplace like the Inland Empire? I'm looking at the audience here. I'm wondering if there's anyone from Orange County that is attending because we're in Orange County. If that's the case, great. I mean, we should go where we're wanted, not just say we went there.
See, I disagree.
Okay.
I think that we need to be as accessible as possible to the public. And sometimes, they, at least to be able to say, we went to this location and gave folks an opportunity to attend, I think that's important. It's perception as well. I mean, if we're only, you always hear complaints, everything happens in Sacramento or everything happens in LA. And I think there are communities that may attend if given the opportunity, and really our job is to provide the opportunity whether they attend or not. But to be able to say, yes, we're meeting in Riverside or we're meeting in wherever, you never know who might show up. I mean, that's just I think we have to be as accessible as possible.
So you're waiting for a motion? Kurt?
It's really the one to the board. What I'm sensing is we have sort of an understanding here that it's going to be in Southern California now. I'm understanding that we're going to change directions and move that to Northern California. I guess we're at least going to investigate that. I don't know if the board wants to wait until the November 4th meeting to, maybe you'll have more information about how viable that is, if we can reserve the room or whatever. I have no idea. So.
Would you need a motion to do? Because we've changed locations before.
I don't necessarily need an emotion. I'm just kind of understanding that.
How about I'll make a motion to have staff investigate the possibility of moving the meeting from Southern California to Northern California for the January 26th meeting.
I think it should just be moved. I mean, I think more stakeholders are in Sacramento. This is a strategic planning meeting. We have better capabilities in terms of webcasting, so it's more available to, so I'm assuming it's public, right?
Yeah, and there's several locations within DCA that we can get a meeting in Sacramento.
So I move that we move the January strategic planning and following business meeting to Sacramento on January 26th and 2017.
A second.
Just a point of procedure. Dr. Wong, do you withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, great.
Is there any further discussion?
Just a memo that we received, Jessica Fields sent it out, that went to the president, vice president, and the governor asking that we keep travel costs to a minimum, so this would help us from the optics. By moving it up there, we'll have less folks flying down here, including staff.
Any other discussion, comments? Mark? Dr. McIntyre? The motion was to move the meeting. Oh, I don't have a comment.
What's your vote?
What's your
Oh,
vote?
Sorry.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. All right. So the next item here is the committee and the work group structures. There's actually a couple of things that were not written on here. We had actually put Maria Sperber on the legislative and regulation committee, so that should be added. And actually, that's the only correction. And then we have a new member, and if Ruby, you'd like to let us know, you can either today or by email, think about which committee you want to join, so everybody has a position on all of them somewhere. So just let us know, think about it. If you have questions on what they do, you can definitely think about that. But these are the committees and work groups as they currently stand.
Do you still want me attending all of these? You said last time you wanted me as
That
a
was
voting member, or is
yeah,
that
was kind of,
unnecessary now?
I was kind of hoping to have you still do that, but
Whatever you want.
will you tell me?
I live to serve. I'm happy to do it.
How about I leave you there, and then if I need you, so possible.
That I'm available if you need me to fill in.
Because I did want that option.
Oh, it's fine.
I have a question. What was the process to select the chairs of each committee?
The committee selected the chairs. So when you go to a committee have a turnover, the committee selected the chair, so.
Did all the committees do that? Okay.
Our committee has not met yet. I'm okay with Rachel being
Which
the
are,
chair.
what committee is that? Yeah, we haven't yet. I don't know, call a meeting just because you brought that
You
up.
can change the chairs too, if you wish, like, it doesn't matter.
Rachel has my voter rings.
All right, so we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the approval of the board minutes from the May 27th meeting. Rachel.
Oh, sorry, my computer connects. So before you are the minutes from the May 27th, 2016. They're action item minutes. And, entertain a motion to pass the minutes as presented. I don't know if there's any changes to it.
I'm ready to move if there are no changes.
Is there any discussion from anybody? Move away.
I so move to approve the board minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Any comments from any public members present? Mark? your vote.
Aye.
Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
Aye. Glenn?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Agenda item 7. Do we have someone from Department of Consumer Affairs? We do.
Good morning, members. Pleasure to be with you today. I'm Shelley. I'm with the DCA's Board and Bureau Relations team, and I'd like to update you just on a few items, several items actually. First update on changes to the department's executive team. In May, after 8 years with the department, Chief Deputy Director Tracy Ryan accepted a new job with the Rural County Representatives of California. And then in late June, Governor Brown appointed Jeff Mason as the new Chief Deputy Director. Jeff has been with the department since 2013, serving as Chief for the Bureau of Security Investigative Services, and most recently as Chief Deputy Commissioner for the Bureau of Real Estate. Jeff was sworn into office last month, and we're happy to have him join our team. Also in May, Melinda McLean, the department's Deputy Director for Legislation and Regulatory Review, accepted a new position in the governor's office. In late July, Governor Brown announced his appointment of Adam Quinones as the new Deputy Director for that division. Adam had previously served with Melinda as the Assistant Deputy Director for Legislation. And finally, also in May, DCA's Assistant Chief Counsel, Tamara Colson, was appointed as Assistant Chief Counsel for the Bureau of Medical Cannabis Regulation. The Governor has appointed Ryan Marcroft, previously a Deputy Attorney General at the California Department of Justice, to replace Ms. Colson, and he has been sworn in this week, and we're happy to have him join the DCA family. I wanted to provide the board with an update on the North Carolina Board of Dental Examiners legislative language. The department has been working with the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development and various stakeholders to clarify the director's proposed review process. Specifically, the new language had been added to SB 1194 by Senator Hill. After testimony was heard on Wednesday evening, Senator Hill pulled the bill, and so at this point, we will keep all the boards and bureaus apprised of any future developments. On July 13th, the department held its first annual Sunset Review briefing with the boards scheduled to undergo Sunset Review in 2017. This briefing focused on reviewing the Sunset Review timeline as well as the Sunset Review report template. The intent is to assist boards with understanding the Sunset Review requirements, provide guidance from executive officers currently undergoing Sunset Review this year, and make the boards aware of all of the resources available at the department, such as the legislative and budget offices, to assist with completing their reports. The department has also implemented a process to assist boards with onboarding new executive officers. We believe this will greatly assist boards bringing on new leaders Part of the process includes making all DCA division heads available to the new EO for a briefing on the services provided by that division and the work currently in process between the division and the board. DCA will also provide the new EO with information on the department and the board, such as contact lists, strategic plans, org charts, fund conditions, and those items that will help bring the EO up to speed. While on the subject of training, just a quick reminder that the last two board member orientation trainings for the year will be on September 22nd and November 16th in Sacramento. Reminder that board members are required to complete the orientation training within 1 year of their appointment or reappointment. As you may know, the Department's Solid Training and Planning Solutions Unit is dedicated to organizational development and offers a wide array of services to DCA's bureaus and boards. During the last week of September, the third Solid sponsored Brown Bag Gathering for executive officers and bureau chiefs will be held. The agenda includes psychological safe workplaces, building a work philosophy, a peer panel, and an update on the Future Leadership Development Program. The peer panel and meeting date will be finalized this week, and then subsequently Outlook invitations will be sent out. One of the initiatives discussed at the EO Brown Bag Gathering that we are very excited about is the creation of the Future Leadership Development Program. This initiative is designed to assist the department and its programs in growing the next generation of extraordinary bureau chiefs and executive officers. The Future Leadership Development Program will have 3 parts to assist in the development of managers into executives. First will be training available and alongside existing executive officers and bureau chiefs. The second will be mentorship opportunities from executives throughout the department and its boards and bureaus. And third will be completion of special projects designed to benefit the participants as well as the department and its boards and bureaus. The projects will be designed to address specific problems or issues facing the department and its boards and bureaus, which are expected to be collected during the EO Brown Bag gatherings. Also, as part of DCA's strategic plan, Solid is implementing a mentoring pilot program. The pilot is voluntary, and your board is already participating. The pilot affords line staff a great deal of flexibility to learn from various participating managers. In addition to some DCA units, as well as your own board, the boards and bureaus currently participating in this program include the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, the Medical Board, Professional Fiduciaries Bureau, Bureau of Automotive Repair, Acupuncture Board, and the Bureau of Electronic Appliance Repair, Home Furnishings, and Thermal Insulation. Your board is seeing a relatively high volume of renewal applicants, as well as optometrist exam applicants in Breeze. Those who choose to submit renewals online see a dramatically quicker turnaround for their application approval. Of those renewals submitted online in July, 87% were processed in 1 day or less. Those who mail in their applications typically see the renewals processed in 1 to 2 weeks, provided the application is complete. There remain 16 outstanding requests for system changes that are not yet scheduled for resolution in an upcoming software release as of August 22nd. Furthermore, the department has implemented a new reporting tool named Qbert. This stands for Quality Business Intelligence Reporting Tool, and the tool allows boards and bureaus direct access to build, edit, and run reports to suit their business needs. DCA resources are available to assist boards and bureaus if some training is needed to understand and use the new tool. The tool is supplemental to the reports and data extracts that are already available to the boards and bureaus. Finally, this year the department will develop a new strategic plan for the years 2017 through 2019. And one of the components of the strategic planning process is a survey of all stakeholders. The survey will be distributed to stakeholders, including any committee members and board members, in approximately mid-September. Your feedback will be vital, and we respectfully ask for your participation to assist us in improving the department's services. And that concludes my update. Any questions?
I have a couple. How long will that survey take?
I am not aware of that. I have not seen the survey yet. I do know they said they did indicate it will be sent out via email communication through the interested parties lists, and they may be able to put it up on the website. They're still working on that.
Okay, and then I have a question about board orientations. In the past, it seemed like they were moved around so that there was better access to new board members, and the new orientations are consistently in Sacramento.
Correct.
Do you know why that decision was made?
I'm not 100% positive, I can double check. I believe that was something they were trying to see if they could reserve resources, since a lot of the people that put on the training are all housed out of headquarters in Sacramento, but I will confirm that for you and get back to you on that.
From that standpoint, in the past, when there were options, then board members that lived in a different part of the state had different options of where to attend.
Correct.
And if we knew that ahead of time, then we could choose to go to specific orientations. But if they're always in Sacramento, if you have a big crop of new board members and they're all from Southern California, it's going to end up costing the state more.
True.
So,
I know one of the philosophies behind it was when a new board member comes on, it's nice to have them come up to headquarters, be able to meet their board staff, and it facilitates that interaction as well. But we're definitely interested in any feedback that you have, so I will definitely share that.
As will I, Dr. Kawaguchi, as a presenter at the MOT. I'll bring your concerns back to the executive office along with Shelley as well.
Any other questions?
Oh, are we going to defer discussion about the Hill bill until later in the agenda?
Yeah, we have a legislative.
Okay.
Anything else? Any comments or questions from anybody from the public? Agenda item number 8, which is the executive officer's report.
Okay, so we're going to start with the Breeze update, kind of just telling off of what Shelley had said. We are seeing a fairly high percentage, and not just renewals, but of the initial optometrist application. We're seeing 84% of our applicants are applying online. We do think a lot of this has to do with the excessive outreach that we're doing with the students in the schools when we go out, and we highly encourage them to apply online, and I think that we're seeing that they are. So that's really successful for us. With the renewals, it is still at 40%. We'd like to see that number higher. So staff is brainstorming how we can get the word out to more of our licensees. We might be running some reports to identify when they are up for renewal and send out an email blast with a link to Breeze and suggesting that they renew online. We'd like to see that number increase. The next one goes down to our budget, and in your packets it had for fiscal month 12 for both of the optometry fund condition and the expenditure report. However, shortly after that, on the 22nd, we received revised fiscal month 13. Those are based on actual numbers spent. So while the fund condition itself has not changed yet, you can see the actual numbers in the expenditure report for the board. And I would like to point out the difference between the surplus now that we're having versus what was projected. And it's now at 18.1% because we came in under budget for the year. And then the RDO registers the same optician fund condition, and their expenditure report is also included. And this obviously is not going to include the fee increase that needs to happen, so this will show you what will happen to the fund if that fee increase does not go forward.
If the increase does go forward, will it be in the plus?
Yes, it would write the fund. I also attached Attorney General cost breakdowns. I know in the past there has been some requests for more information for what we are spending at Attorney General's, and so in an attempt to provide that information, I looked at what other boards were providing, and this is what Medical Board was providing to their board members for a breakdown. So I hope that that provides the information that the board members would like to see for now on. And if there's anything missing, if you'd like to see more information without disclosing specific case information, I'd like to accommodate any kind of request. So for the personnel updates, this was normally going to be given by Rob Stephanopoulos because he's the Assistant Executive Officer and he is the supervisor over all of the staff. And I wanted to just start out by thanking him. Because of him, I was able to go on a week's vacation, and that hasn't happened ever in my life. And for the first time, I didn't have to worry that things were going to go wrong, and it was really, really nice for me. So I really am grateful for him and for staff. They were on top of it. I had to check my phone for emails just a couple times, and it was amazing. The building was still there when I got there, and so I do want to thank him a lot for his leadership and allowing me some more time with my family. We did fill our board vacancies. The ones that we had reported for last time, we filled our licensing and enforcement lead vacancies. We also filled our vacant enforcement position. We have Charles McGirt, came from the Board of Registered Nursing. He brings a lot of knowledge he came from the probation unit, however he has cross-training in licensing. He also was involved with Breeze development. He has a lot of knowledge that he brought with him. So we're really excited to have him. We did promote Kelly Flores from the MST position. She's going to be she's the enforcement analyst now. Kelly Flores, as previously reported, worked on the inspection program for a vet med, and so this specific position that was vacant isn't charged with researching the inspection programs within DCA and finding the best possible program for our board. So she was naturally a really good fit for this position. She's also going to be doing all of the duties that Lady Franco was doing. And she is, as you all know, she had already absorbed those roles in the meantime until we filled that position. So she's already on it and rocking. We also promoted Cherie Kimball to the enforcement lead position. Cherie has been with the board for several years. She has a total of over 12 years of experience in enforcement. She's always been the person when we ever get a new enforcement position, whether it's office technician or an analyst, she's usually that first person training them. She's letting them know the processes, she's reviewing their work, so she's already naturally there. And so we're really happy to be able to promote that position and give her that position. Unfortunately, by promoting 2 staff, we then created 2 vacancies. And we have reposted that MST position a few times. And we haven't had a great candidate pool. So one thing that we understand that we need to fill this vacancy, but we want to be sure that we're getting the right fit, the right staff, the right experience. So we aren't rushing the decision. We make sure we get the appropriate staff. And so we held interviews for that position recently, but I think we may be reposting that one. For the enforcement, position, we did get a pretty good candidate pool with that. We're scheduling interviews. We're pretty excited with this candidate pool. For staff development, as Shelley also mentioned, we are highly encouraging all of our staff to be involved in the mentorship pilot program that I volunteered for to participate in. And there are several of our staff who are participating in it, so we're really happy with it. Joanne has participated in it. She's had a few. You want to speak to your experience so far?
I've had 2 meetings with my mentor. It's been fantastic because we were able to choose from about a dozen mentors and finding someone that can help you with your development within the board. My mentor actually has a lot of experience with regulations, which is very key to my position, and he's been giving great pointers, advice, and introducing me to people. It's been extremely valuable and a different perspective of where I'm in the job, and I'm able to do my job better because of these meetings.
So, and we're getting similar feedback from other staff, so we're really excited with the development of our staff. I also have kind of volunteered a couple other EOs to serve as my mentors because they have a lot more experience, and I volunteered, I kind of told them that I need them to help me, and they've been amazing to me, so I really appreciate that. We've also started doing some one-on-one meetings with staff. This was a suggestion from the executive officer of physical therapy, basically asking for their feedback. Is there anything that as management we can be providing? What drives them? What we can do to help better develop them as staff and as a person to make sure that they are thriving. We also developed a kudos wall. This was as a result from one of our, when Rob and I attended the Leadership Academy, one of the trainings, a suggestion was to make a kudos wall. And this kudos wall is in our office, and it's for staff to recognize other staff, we're going above and beyond, whether it's dealing with the licensees or the consumers or within the board. It's just to do the recognition for them, and it seems to be going well. The next update is for the examination and licensing programs, and this is actually a really exciting update. As previously reported, it was difficult for us to recruit subject matter experts because we are no longer offering CE until we get the authority to offer CE. And so we had reported that it was difficult to get that. But with Joanne's work and recruitment efforts, we were able to go and, like 100,
We had a 100% increase of participants, which sounds quite amazing, which it was, but we went from the minimum of participants to host a workshop to we're actually hitting the maximum of how many people they can fit and actually deal with in the workshop.
So that was really exciting because I don't think we ever had, I think we had them verified and we've never had that many participants.
It was the most we've ever had.
So we were really excited with that. And then staff is also working together to find if there's a more efficient way for the contract process, because with our subject matter experts, we have to get a contract in place with them. The process is kind of clunky, so we're reevaluating that to see how we can improve there.
Question. What's going on to get CE units for subject matter experts?
So we can provide that update during the regulations.
Okay, that's
But
there.
yeah, the board
Okay.
had approved already the regulation to increase the continuing education credit for it. To be able to offer it, and then they also increase it from what they were previously doing.
That didn't have to be done through legislation, that's something.
No, this is done through regulations for 1536. Okay, for the licensing program, as reported in the meeting, in the materials, we did have a sharp increase in our calls. We also received an increase in our applications. We are still having Carol, who was previously doing all of the licensing applications. She's cross-training with Charles, and he's taking on a more leadership role and getting more knowledge under his belt. And with the licensing meetings that are taking place, it's really helping identify any kind of process improvements that we can make.
Jessica?
Yes.
Is there any reason why or what prompted the increase in calls?
Usually we see an increase in calls after graduation because the applicants are really eager to get their license. So,
But it indicated it was a sharp increase, so is that more than what you generally get?
no, not compared to the time frame. It's the same volume.
All
It's
right.
just during this season after graduation, we get an influx of calls.
Thank you.
With the RDO program, we are seeing an average of 15 calls per day for the RDO program. This, according to what was the data that was available at the medical board, they were receiving significantly less. I think they were reporting maybe 1 to 2 a day, maybe, and we're seeing a significantly higher amount. We are doing more research to find out if that's more because of the law changes in 684, or if it's more of them not understanding the processes, or if it's them just not knowing that we now regulate them. We're trying to find out what's causing this increase and what we can do to communicate with that population to help educate with them.
Well, I think definitely during your presentations to the schools, you can say, once you submit it, you still have like 1 week or don't call us for at
Well,
least.
not to call us, because we have to be there for them, but we do let them know that with every call that we get, it is taking time away from something else. However, we have met with the licensing unit, and we're looking at having more of the upfront staff, like a receptionist, and the backup staff be able to answer the basic questions, because a lot of those calls are, what's the status of my application? So we've trained the receptionist and any backup receptionist to be able to know where to look in the system, and they can verify in there.
There's no way the applicants can go and check on it
Like
themselves.
FedEx, like a package
Right,
maybe?
saying it's processing, payment received,
Yeah, there are ways for them to check it as well, but they still like to call.
Yeah, I think it's like, yeah, I know. I
Drones
graduated.
to their door. Can't we have drones now? Deliver it right to their door?
Yeah, but we are trying to find out how to,
Amazon Prime.
for the licensing analyst, how they can focus on actually processing, where the other staff can help answer the questions. So with the enforcement program, I had already touched on, now that we do have we have a vacancy left. We do hope to have that one filled rather soon. I think we'll probably schedule interviews next week and hope to have them filled by the end of next month. In the statistics, I did provide updated statistics because for the RDO program, we had nothing under pending or referred to AG. We're having some difficulty obtaining some statistics because of how the RDO program is set up. Right now, they're under the medical board domain, and we didn't have access to Hubert to run that data because of the data was owned by the medical board. So we had to work with OAS to get access to that, and so I think you guys all should have received an email from Rob with updated statistics. The last update is the strategic plan. At the last board meeting, we were directed to research the strategic plan and having to redo the entire thing, kind of just readjust based on all the changes that the board has seen over the last year. And Solid agreed with the recommendation to move forward with a new strategic plan. They did provide a schedule which was created was put in your packet. However, based on the decision to make the January 26th, 27th board meeting, I asked them to do a revised schedule, and that was included in the new documents on your table. With that, are there any questions?
Question. When an optometrist doesn't have a statement of licensure or something, and the board's gonna issue a citation, does the Attorney General's office get involved in the issuing of that citation? I'm just going back to Attorney General fees. Does everything have to go through the AG?
No, citations, if a citation is contested, then it would go to the Attorney General's office for a hearing if they didn't want to do an informal conference. So if they appeal, there's the choice to do an informal conference where I would meet with the applicant or the licensee and staff, and we can talk to see if there's reason to either lower it or dismiss it altogether. If then after that decision, they can still appeal it, and then it could go to a formal hearing. They could also choose to bypass the entire informal hearing process and go to just a formal hearing. But it's not until it's contested that it would go to the Attorney General's office. With that said, though, for those who are operating without a statement of licensure or branch office license, typically the process is to gain compliance. And so if we're able to contact them and they're quick to do a statement of licensure, this is the first time that's happened, then we wouldn't issue a citation.
So with those first time type things where we have 266 pending enforcement cases, would those include simple things like that?
Yes.
Okay,
that
that includes
advertising.
anything?
Yep.
Okay. I didn't know if that was only the serious stuff or if that was the small stuff like not having a certification or something.
It's everything.
Thanks.
I just wanted to make a comment. I just wanted to thank you and Rob for continued focus on staff development. That was an opportunity in the past before you became EO, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Three sets of questions. Tagging along on the Attorney General bills, looking at the bills, I do notice that there's attorney services and paralegal services, and the services that we get billed for is predominantly attorney services. I don't know how to frame the inquiry, but we don't have a lot of contested hearings, right? Trials, things like that, where you would expect an attorney to appear. And I'm just wondering if there's inquiry from DCA to the AG's office of, gee, are there more services that paralegals can provide as opposed to attorneys? Because if you have a good paralegal, they can do almost everything short of appearing at a hearing. So I see on these bills, very little use of paralegal services. I don't know how to frame the inquiry, but it is an interesting curiosity to me. On the budget, I know you've explained this before, this on the RDO, analysis of fund condition. I see some negatives in budget year 2017-18, the negative 108, negative 250, monthly reserve 4.0, and negative 9.1. Can you explain that to me? I always wonder what the negatives mean.
Are you looking under the fund condition or the expenditure report?
The analysis of fund condition, fund balance, for the RDOs.
This one, 0175, says at the top.
Yes.
What does that mean for the board?
So it means that the program cannot financially sustain itself. It's spending more money than what it's bringing in.
And we're trying to address that with the fee
Correct.
increase. Okay. Last, on the enforcement report, the received cases, the post-paid cases, pending cases. Would you at a later point provide information to me or the board regarding the priority cases? This figure, these statistics are interesting, but I'm particularly interested in how much time we're spending on the priority 1 cases to make sure that staff is addressing those more immediately, that we're getting them through the system more immediately. I don't know exactly how you want to display that information, but this is aggregate information, and it would give me comfort if I know that the priority 1 cases are actually being given more priority and getting through the system quicker
Yes,
than
we can get that for you.
the priority 5 cases or the priority 2 cases.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so I have one more question, and it's about the license applications and the average cycle time, which has a double asterisk. And to me, it seems a little bit misleading, because at that point, when we start the cycle time, the board has not received all the information that it needs to process that. So it seems like artificially inflated to be longer than I think it actually is.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, and that our process has always been that we are allowing them to apply during their 3rd year. And the reasoning that I was given is because that allows them to take the law exam earlier. But what we're doing is allowing them to apply when they don't meet any of the other qualifications for licensure. So it's making the cycle time a lot larger. What we're currently looking at is reevaluating the process to see if there's some things that we can improve upon. One of them being not kind of removing ourselves out of the process of getting them approved to sit for the law exam. Because if they are able to go online, and because in order to qualify for the law exam, they have to be 18 years of age. And so the board, I feel like, doesn't need to spend time verifying that. If they can go online, apply to take the law exam, then they would apply then for the license once they met all the other qualifications. So they wouldn't be applying until they graduated, until they met all of the other requirements, and then we have a true time frame of how long it takes staff to process an application. We're analyzing that right now.
Any other comments, questions? Any comments or questions from members of the public?
Okay.
Agenda item number 9, the ARVO annual meeting summary.
So this is a rather long summary, and I provided several hyperlinks to available information. So rather than reading it verbatim, I was just going to give a quick overview. It was an amazing experience. Everybody was really, surprised that California was there and grateful. I received a lot of positive feedback that California is finally at the table. We represent the highest population in the nation, and we've never been at the table. So it's a great opportunity for us to learn from what other boards are doing, hear the problems that they are incurring. A lot of them are the exact same issues. So it's really good to get that input from the other boards. I also form a lot of really good resources, some connections that have been really helpful. There's a lot of things where we are doing kind of ahead of everybody else. For example, webcasting. I don't think when the question was asked, I don't think anyone else was webcasting their meetings. The use of all the electronic documents, the fact that we're posting everything onto our website. We seem to be really excelling in that. However, there's some things that we're not doing that I feel like we can research. For example, Maryland decided to go to all paperless licenses. So, other than getting the engraved certification, because we would still do that, we would keep that, but then the renewals we can do paperless. They can go online and just as soon as they renew, it would pull up. They can print it out and post it. So that would cut down on time. Another thing that they're doing for the replacement license, that there would be really no need for them to apply for a replacement license because they can go online and print it out. So we'd like to start researching how we can do that with the resources that we're given right now. There was a really good training given by the attorney for Arbo. One of the things that he opened the meeting up with was asking the question to everybody present, how many are public members? And there were only a few people who rose their hand. And then he said, by the end of this, I want to make sure that everybody here is raising their hand, because whether, despite what your occupation is, whether you're a professional member or you're a public member, you are there for the public. So everybody should be raising their hand. And I think, and that was kind of the theme throughout the whole meeting, which was really great to hear. I provided his legal update as well. I hyperlinked to his documents. I recommend that everybody reads those. A couple other things I just want to touch. I don't want to go through the whole report, but I would like the board to consider at a future meeting using OE Tracker. It looks to be very beneficial in that it would allow us to more effectively audit the CE. However, I have heard some downsides to the current system, so I have contacted the OE Tracker individuals to find out what those are, and we'd like to bring that back to a future board meeting. With that, are there any other questions or any other items that you would like me to touch on and go more in detail with?
I just have one comment. So I actually sit on this committee for the OE Tracker. So I would like to get, we had a call about this. I'd like to get questions and comments from this board on what they think about our participation in that, what you think would be the positive. I don't want to speak for the entire board, but I'd like to get your feedback to bring back to the next meeting. We meet every other month by telephone for teleconference, and then we have a once-a-year meeting face-to-face. So whatever anyone thinks would be good or bad. If you have any comments now.
How long would the records be kept by the OE Tracker?
They haven't done that. They kind of say, they do like the legal 7-year kind of thing, but they haven't defined that.
Because I've had several people ask me if they get audited, how long do they have to keep it there? So if the OE Tracker would keep it for X number, right, forever, right, if it's electronic, then that would be a nice benefit to all optometrists, that they wouldn't have to worry about keeping paper copies of proof. That would just be on the OE Tracker. I mean, I think it's also nice that this would be one way, it'd be an easy way for staff to confirm that everyone's getting all of their required CE.
And very quickly too. I saw a demonstration of it, and it was amazing how quick. And it also would break it down by category, because they have to have a certain amount of hours per section, and it does it for you. So staff can make sure that it's 100% audit with it. Whereas right now, I think we're less than 5%, and it's extremely time consuming.
So I think there's definitely a benefit for both staff and then just for optometrists in general, because it would ensure, one, that everyone's actually completing their CE requirements, the proper areas. It's easier for staff to confirm it, and then if anyone ever does get audited, it would be an easy pull-up. So
you would actually audit most practice.
Right.
Yeah, she would audit. It would not audit. Right. The board would audit.
So
Go ahead.
So I'm looking on their website and it looks like it's funded by Johnson & Johnson in Allergan. Is that, I mean, I know in the past we've talked about partnering with like VSP on outreach and that type of thing, and we're told that it shows that we can't do that. And when you pull up their page, their logo is right there on the bottom. I mean, is that, I mean, I'm just, what's the consistency?
How does that differ from what?
If on one hand, we're being told we can't partner with groups in California to do a public service outreach on online refractions, but then we're gonna push all of our optometrists to a website that's funded by Johnson & Johnson and Allergan. I just think we need to have some clarification.
Other comments?
Yeah, no.
Oh, actually, I'm sorry, you actually.
No, I'm like stupid in the ways of OE Tracker, because I just keep taking copies of everywhere I go. If I go to a CE at Berkeley and I have, how does that go into OE Tracker?
There's two ways. One, you can actually, the main way they do it now is that they will submit it to OE Tracker. There's like a scan that you can do.
Okay.
So they scan it like when you're at the meeting, you attended, you have to go every time you go.
Is that already, because I don't know, is that already set up? Because when
You're doing it in other states like that.
okay, because when I go to Berkeley,
It's the
3 or
same
4
thing.
weeks later, I get a sheet of paper.
Yeah.
So can that be scanned in and go to, can I personally scan it in?
Enter things because they can confirm it.
And would OE Tracker be able to confirm, I don't know what they're looking for, but if I take CME courses, I go to local hospital and take a course on whatever. Since it's not an optometric course, will they still accept that and store it? Okay.
So I mean, I kind of just listen to them because we don't do this and we're so far away from doing it. I just listen to them and hear the pros and cons, and there's lots of things back and forth. So I just want to know what people here think. So the next time they ask, you know.
If it's something which is extreme, you know, if it's like using Breeze, which is wonderful, but if it was something like a Breeze type system where I can just scan it in, or Berkeley or wherever would just, you know, verify my attendance. Like on my phone?
Yeah,
I mean, that would be,
sure.
yeah, if I could get
They
something
do that.
sent to my phone, I can scan it in, that would be great, and I would use it, and I could get rid of a drawer that I have full of
I know.
CEs for the last 10 years, yeah.
You only keep them for 10.
So, yeah, if
No, I think it's a QR reader code that
Yeah,
they can do with
they
their
do,
phone.
and you put on your, yeah. I've gone to certain meetings where you can use that.
that would just be great, because it would just be so damn easy to do. I've used it once when I was at a Vision Expo thing, and it was like, that's it, don't I get paid for this? They said, no, it's already in there.
No, it's in there.
And it was in there.
Well, plus it would be nice because then you could double check yourself and say, hey, you know what, I'm still short on X amount in.
For this category.
Right.
Yeah, so.
So I think it should be something that we should look at making, you know, eventually just going strictly to that, to a paperless system. It would be great.
So a general question I ask whenever an organization is thinking about adopting or using a system or a computer system, and that is there a viable exit plan in the future? Because you want to avoid a situation where you're connected to a system and then you're eventually addicted to that system, so that 10 years down the line, the system's all screwed up and you want to exit, but staff tells you, well, we can't exit because we're so dependent on the system and screw everything up if we exit. So there's this addiction. So I think that's kind of a question that should be considered.
Yeah, I think that's part and parcel of that other question that Ms. Mitchell had brought up too.
I have a question. I don't mean to open it in different directions. I know we're talking about tracking for optometrists, and I know that opticians are not required for the CE, but maybe in the future we talk about it. How could that work for opticians as well?
Okay, so this is currently under the regulatory boards of optometry, but we can ask them, you know, to do that. Any other comments, questions? Agenda item number 10. The update on the occupational analysis and audit of EDO examinations. Jessica.
So this is a follow-up to some questions that were given to us by the board. They wanted us to research the possibility of doing an occupational analysis with outside vendors rather than using OPES. There is a government code that requires the board to use civil service employees whenever possible. OPES, they do possess the qualifications and the skills needed to provide the occupational analysis and the audit. Therefore, they would have to decline first offering those services if they were unable to do it, and then we could go out to an outside vendor. They did not decline to do that, and they are qualified to do it. So they provided a memo with additional information, what the schedule would look like, the cost of it, and the project plan. So if you have any questions, please let me know.
Jessica, what do you think the estimates for the subject matter experts will be, since it says it's not included?
Correct. So I do have those numbers, not right at this minute, but the difference, it still totaled almost $90,000 with all of the subject matter experts. We did submit we are pursuing a BCP to secure those funds, and so that's how I know the total. I think it came in a little under $90,000.
Okay, thank you.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, is there any overlap with anything that Arbo's done with studies of the NBEO that we could just use instead of creating a new?
So the NBEO did undergo an occupational analysis recently. I believe it was 2016.
It was this year they had completed occupational analysis, however, it's not been implemented into their exam yet, but they have completed it.
But we would still need them, OPS, to do an occupational analysis of everything that's happening in California, compare it to our current law exam, and make sure that it's still mirroring what's going on with the national exam.
Any other questions?
There was something very odd about this, their communication to us, saying that they're capable of evaluating the exam in-house, but, oh, by the way, we have to hire some experts. That seemed very contradictory. I don't know how we address that, but it seemed contradictory.
So that's actually very similar to what we would do with establishing the law exam. OPES, they do facilitate and they help make sure that the test is valid, but we still have contracts with subject matter experts. Those are the optometrists, and there are exceptions for us to be able to use optometrists because they possess the knowledge and skills that civil service employees do not have, and so we're able to contract with them to do it.
So $57,000 to administer whatever they're administrating.
And to do the research and the analysis.
Okay. Okay. I just questioned that.
I agree. Can we go outside to obtain a bid just to benchmark what this estimated cost is? Just to see what industry standard is?
You could certainly, if you so chose, you could do what's called an RFI, a request for information. If you just want to see what's out in the marketplace. Like I said, it would be somewhat of an exercise. I don't want to say it wouldn't result in the underlying contract because we're sort of barred by statute.
Right.
You could, if you wanted, you could direct the executive officer to go out with, like I said, some sort of solicitation document just to see if anybody else could do it, and what the cost would be. I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure exactly the response you're going to get because there may not be any interest from the people saying.
Because they know the system.
Exactly. So.
Yeah.
And there's no guarantee that they're gonna lower their cost.
No, but at least we would have something to negotiate off of.
I don't think they're gonna negotiate.
This is basically it.
They're like, we're in the statute, this is what we're charging. Yeah.
Any other comments from any board members? Any public comments?
We have their,
Whatever you want, as long as we can hear you.
just in
Well,
response.
I think she probably, so
Yes.
Just to clarify, OPEZ provides the third-party or the independent objective analysis in the process. And the SMEs, subject matter experts, are the third prong to that defensibility. So OPS is the psychometricians, the board, you are the regulators, and the SMEs provide the job expertise. Outside vendors will probably also have to have SMEs for that job expertise. And from what we're familiar with, typically the outside independent vendors charge about 2 to 3 times more. That's been our experience, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yep.
Let's see, we have, so we have some, agenda item 11, the update on the board's 2016 sunset report.
So at the last board meeting, we provided an overview of the sunset process and why the sunset process is needed. On July 8th, we did get the template from the Senate Committee on Business Professions Economic Development. That is in your attachments 1 and 2, the email and the template and the guide to creating a template. We also met with DCA. They held their, like as Shelley had mentioned, they held their first group sunset meeting, and it was really beneficial to everyone involved to find out, get some guidance on the sunset process, and also to let us know all of the resources available from DCA to assist in the sunset review. At the last meeting, the board also decided to establish a sunset committee. And I believe the committee, the motion was to have the president and vice president be part of that committee to help staff draft and edit the documents. So currently we do have the president and the vice president involved in this. Staff has submitted a first rough draft of the sunset, and we asked for some feedback from the committee. And so we are working back and forth. One thing that the committee would like to do is have some teleconferences monthly until November to get the board input on the drafts, because this is a board report and it's really important that this comes from the board. With that, I'll turn it over to the committee to see if they would like to add anything.
Just like to add that it was a really good first draft, very thorough, but there's work to be done to make it more personal to us. And I helped at least Jessica go through and determine what we might be able to make a little bit more compelling that may not have been, as well as establish the introduction and the overview to the full sunset report, framing it based on where we are today and not just a typical Word department within DCA. And we need to change our look and our image some, and this is the great opportunity to do it. This and the strat plan. The strat plan and this will go side by side.
So for me, it's, I'd just like to know, does anyone have any comments right now on this report? Any suggestions?
So I think it would be helpful, because I found it helpful. I pulled up the sunset review report from the last time, from 2012, and read it. And I think for those of us who weren't involved in it before, it's great information. Like, for instance, I didn't know you put in the attendance records of all the board members. So I think if you could share that link, do you have that link?
Absolutely.
You know, that would be a great link too. I've already read it. I got it from another source, but would be a great way for board members to kind of see the process and see what was in. And then also, I think looking at, I found it helpful, and I think I have another document that's more of an executive summary of this, that had the action items and what we did and did not complete.
Yes.
And there was quite a few things I don't think we completed from last time that I think needs to be brought to light. I'm actually surprised we haven't, as a board, gone over the last sunset review before we even got to, sounds like a draft report's already been written. It would have been nice to have gone over this one at an earlier date. So maybe that should be added to the next board meeting.
And to your point on the attendance record, it does not have committee meetings, it doesn't have, so that will, I provided comments on that as well.
This one does.
No, the
Oh,
draft.
the new one? Oh, yeah, this old one has, I mean, there's a
No, I know.
teleconference
So-
calls and.
We're working on
Yeah.
updating the draft.
It shouldn't contain the work groups.
Actually, Curly.
No, it just has the committees.
Committees.
Right.
To your point about reviewing, we can actually make that the first teleconference rather than waiting until, I think November might be a little late.
That's fine.
So we'll make that maybe the first teleconference.
Great.
Because we want to do the monthly kind of work through this.
And I'll see if I can find the electronic copy of the executive summary that I received. Then I can send it to you, because it's not,
Part of it.
both are good, but the other one is much faster to read than
Great.
this one. If you need to fall asleep, then go ahead.
Read the sunset report from conference.
One thing to keep in mind when you're looking at the 2012 Sunset Report, that covered 10 years worth of activities, where this one is only going to cover 4. So.
Any other comments or feedback on the report?
Madam President, members, may have heard just for a moment, having served as counsel for several boards, I can't stress and emphasize enough from Ms. Seifried said, this is actually the board's report. And so I just want to make sure that it's not a staff report, it's not what the staff thinks, it's the board's report. And to that end, it is almost similar to written testimony that you will give to the committee. So it is a very, very vital document. I'll leave it at that.
And that is one of the reasons we're doing it this way. In the past, it wasn't necessarily happening.
When this is completed, do we vote on this? Does
Yes.
this-
Yes.
Okay.
The goal is to have the board approve the language at the November meeting.
Any other comments from board members? Any other comments from the public? Agenda item 12, an update on the Cardio Advisory Committee.
So at the last board meeting, we had we discussed the distribution plan of the RDO application. We distributed it to all of the board members seeking help with using their networks to get the word out, to encourage everybody to apply who's interested. We also discussed having staff go to the Capitol, meet with legislative staff, with the governor's office. Joanne spent a day at the Capitol and went to everybody's door, to the governor's office, and educated them on what the committee is and the type of people that we're looking for. We were hoping to get some help from the governor's office to see if they have any people who are interested from the public who are interested in serving on boards that might want to use this as a stepping stone. The deadline to submit the application was April 12th. I'm sorry, August 12th. In the materials, I think it says we received 30 applications. We now have 32 applications, and they were all professionals. They all had either a contact lens dispensing registration, spectacle lens dispenser, or an RDO. We received 0 interest from the public. Therefore, the committee would like to develop an outreach plan and reevaluate how we're going to get more interest from the public to serve on the committee. And then once the committee meets, then we'll decide what the new deadline to submit applications are. And then we'll send out some information to the board members seeking help to use their networks and get public interest.
What's the makeup of the committee again?
Yeah.
How many public, how many professional?
So there's two public members, 2 professional members, and 1 board member.
So when I saw this in the report, I went to the board's website and it has the, if you're interested, click this link. And I clicked the link and it's the application. And it did not sing to me. Like, why would anybody want to be on this board? I mean,
No, you have to do a marketing piece.
somebody, if it's more work on staff, but if someone can explain why a member of the public would want to be on this board, that it, consumer protection, something that's more than just the black and white application with a little explanation at the top.
And there was a letter that actually was signed by our board president that we used as the cover letter when we went to the legislature. And it was my understanding that that was part of the document on our website, so it sounds like it wasn't, and so we can put that on there. But I do know as part of the listserv, so any of the interested parties, which includes licensees and public members and a lot of advocacy groups, they did get the listserv, and it did have the rundown and basically the same information that was on the cover letter. But we will make sure that that is fixed on our website.
Because we have networks of people who are interested in these kinds of positions, and
Yeah.
it would save us a lot of work.
Comment as someone who does a lot of trying to get women appointed. You need to doll it up. You need to not make it just a letter from the board president. It needs to be a fact sheet. You need to say, what's the time commitment? What's the per diem rate? Because that's what they're going to ask. How much is the travel? Does the state pay for the travel? And these are all questions that people are going to ask. And, you know, it should be like a nice flyer, colored, you're giving back to the public. This is a great, you know, opportunity to serve the governor and serve the state. I mean, you've got to, especially for something like this, because it's a board appointed under the optometry board, so it's not a, you know, one of the boards that you're going to see necessarily that on the governor's website. So, you know, I don't know who, if Joanne's doing it or you. I've got all kinds of stuff I've written to market stuff like this.
That'd be great.
That just call me and we'll sit down and knock it out.
Okay. So we're also considering professional affiliations and associations that are California-based, like the consulting engineers, healthcare, arts and entertainment, law, all of that. Because there's
Well, I'm speaking to women lawyers next month, so if we have something, I'll take it and
the National
let them know.
Association of Corporate Directors is another.
NAVO.
NAVO, WCD, we'll find, right.
NAVO would be a good one.
NAVO would be great.
Jessica,
Yes.
would the members of this committee be going through the same orientation process and filing a Form 700 and all of the other little things that you have to do if you're a board member? Would committee members be subject to the same thing?
I believe so, but we can research.
Could we
that.
ask legal?
We can ask legal. I don't, you know, most of our Form 700 filing requirements are in our conflict of interest code regulations, and I'm not quite sure we've caught up there yet. So we can check on that as well. We'll put that down as a.
If they're not now, I'm sure they will be in the future. Yeah.
It just adds to the time commitment when there's a sexual harassment prevention training and we have to take driver's training courses and it's just crazy stuff.
But then you have to temper that with all the benefits you get.
Well, travel Orange County, yes.
Maybe Riverside.
Or Riverside.
Hey,
The Mission Inn.
Dream the dream, Donna.
Any other comments? Public comments?
As an RDO applicant, just wanted to let you know on the marketing, yes, in order to get the public out there, it only circulated in a small group of people that I've known about being part of the committee. There is interest out there. It's just targeting the right people for it and explaining exactly what it is, the ultimate goal of what that committee is wanting and what it's going to be for. But I mean, it was such a short time frame from when we got the announcement to it to when they wanted the applicants to come in. So I think if it was just a little bit longer as far as going out and trying to register interest in the public, I think.
She has a point. If I look, what's a dispensing optician? I mean, it doesn't even explain on this when you pull up the what it is. And I don't even know what this is. Why do I want to do this? I'm going to go apply for, something else that I, know. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to, this is what they do. When you go get your glasses, this is what happens, And that's going to, you just have to, it's a job. You're trying to get people to apply for a job. You have to make it seem like it's something that they really want to volunteer. That it's a volunteer job, so why should you volunteer for it? That was a good point for.
13. I'll hand it over to Joanne Stacy.
Thank you. Okay, so we're looking at agenda item A, AB 12. Unfortunately, this one has died. Going back over it, it required the board to look at all the regulations and review them by 2018. Next one we're looking at is AB 2744. This one has passed both houses and is on the way to the governor. This one has full support. It clarifies when like Groupon and Living Social can use referrals for their deals with glasses and such. Next one we're looking at is SB 1039. This one has our fee structure in it for the RDO program, along with some cleanup language that was just amended in. This bill is currently on the assembly floor. It's had quite a few amendments, but it's still moving. This one has a party line vote, but it's passing through. It should be going out. Session officially ends the end of this month. They're done. So things are getting out pretty quickly right now. They're in session right now, and it could be out any day now. Any questions?
So that, I'm sorry, so that's in the end.
It's over in the assembly now. It's on the assembly
It's
floor,
on the
third
floor.
reading.
And it's party line because of the fee increase?
Yeah.
Joanne?
Just a kind of procedural question. So the recommendation was, I guess the board's previous position was the SIA support if amended. If our amendments have been essentially accepted, should the board's position be revised to street support?
The amendments are in.
So we have an SIA.
Would the board like to support it?
To support it. Do we want to write a letter of support? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Sorry.
At this point, I would say we write, instead of it, because we might not have time to get in a letter of support if they take it today. I would say write a letter to the governor asking for his signature on the bill.
We would need a motion.
I still move that we, okay, wait, let me back up. I move that we write a letter of support to send to the chair and to the committee, or to the author, but then we also send a letter of support to the governor's office. Because I recall we had an issue where we had to do it.
For signature.
We have to do two, so asking for signature. So if we can still get it in, which I don't think we can, but you never know. Or then if it goes to the governor, that we send approval for signature.
It has to go to the other house anyway, doesn't it, or not?
No, it's in the,
So is it assumed with your motion that we change our opinion to support?
yeah, because
Right.
it was support if amended,
And
and then they took all of our amendments.
So how about we state that at the beginning of the motion, given that our amendments were all taken, we would now like to change our position to support.
Support,
And then
yeah.
letter to the governor.
Letter to the author, and
Second.
then to the governor.
So there's just, I think, any other further discussion? Any public comment? So I'll take a roll call vote. Mark Morgan.
Yes.
Dr.
Yes.
McIntyre. Rachel.
Yes.
Dr. Wong.
Yes.
Dr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Dr. Oguchi.
Yes.
Is it Donna? Aye.
All right. Moving on to SB 1155. This hadn't been on the agenda before. When it was put on the agenda, it was still alive. Unfortunately, this bill has died. In Assembly Appropriations, what it did was waive the license fee for veterans that are honorably discharged from the military.
They waived the fee?
It would waive the first time the initial fee.
Who opposed it?
Yeah.
It died in appropriation suspense. So there was no opposition, just didn't make it out.
Do we even know what percentage of our optometrists were vets?
We have recently started recording that information, but we don't have enough data to make up. Okay, next one we're looking at is E. So this was originally presented as 1195. 1195 did not make House of Origin deadline, so it died on the Senate floor. They then amended that language into 1194. That bill was heard, and as discussed earlier, that bill was heard in Assembly B and P. After the author presented it and the opposition came forward, the author decided to pull the bill and would address the issue in this upcoming year. This is the one with the North Carolina language.
Members, may I be heard on this for just a moment? Thank you. So this was essentially, at one point was considered to be the legislative answer to the North Carolina. And it went through a couple different iterations. I just want to, just as the board goes forward and the legislature goes forward, at this point in time, I just want to let you know that the enactment of a state statute is not necessarily guaranteed immunity from any kind of North Carolina action. So I just want to point that out. There's really no state silver bullet here, because an enterprising respondent or petitioner could always claim that there's an antitrust violation. I do believe that the board members at this point would be protected, would be indemnified under this. I think one of the things that was important in the bill, as I pointed out, was the indemnification language clarifying that. So, we had talked about, 1195 being the solution. I'm not quite sure it's the solution. Obviously, it's no solution now because it's inactive. So, just wanted to point that out.
What was the opposition, or?
There were a few groups that came forward. Most notably were nursing organizations, construction group organizations, and public employees.
And why?
There were concerns that this bill would give a overarching veto power to the director of DCA.
That was the point of the legislation, right?
The arguments were made that there's a lot of safeguards in place already, that the safeguards that are in existence right now are adequate, and that the bill would push things in a direction they felt uncomfortable with.
Ms. Stacy has the correct numbers. There was a talk about whether this was the focused answer, whether this was an overcorrection, that stuff, whether this was really necessary. There was a whole lot of discussion and concern about those points.
I guess was it button amend, and it went a little bit faster than, for them to really have that full opportunity to be involved in the process.
It was done really, there was a lot of conference calls that we were invited to, and that is part of it when you push something that fast.
Okay, the next bill we're looking at is SB 482. This was the Cures bill we're looking at, requiring the registration once it's certified as being useful. This is passing both the Senate and the Assembly with unanimous support. It's over on the Assembly floor right now and should probably pass out, given what's the record on it, before the end of session.
So we have a watch position on this bill, and I can't remember. I'm looking to those of you who
This was a watch because the Cures system has had an unknown impact, but the board was concerned with the Cures database itself and how it functions, which has been a concern for a lot of boards. There have been some organizations that have come out against the bill.
What was that? You have to register for the system, but there's no actual requirement for anyone to use the system.
Oh, is that
So,
right?
So until we, I guess, mandate everyone to use the system is when.
That's what this
bill would do. You have to register for it.
This would require that you have to use.
This bill would require that.
Do we want to change our position on the bill? To support, well, it's not going to get amended. It would either be support or oppose, because at this point,
Right now, we can't amend anything on the floor except with a special rule waiver. Those do exist, but it's few and far between and very hard to predict when it's going to happen.
I'm just asking if, at this point, having a watch, it's probably going to pass out of the legislature. So if we were going to do anything, now would be the time to do something. Also, CMA is opposed to it. The chamber. I'm just asking.
There was discussion last time about the concerns because the Cures system is an unknown right now.
That's fine.
Any questions on that? Okay. Next one we're going to look at is SB 622. That was the scope bill This bill made it over to the Assembly for B&P, however, the author pulled it before the hearing. It's unknown right now whether or not the bill idea will be addressed next legislative session. And then the last one, SB 836. This is actually into effect. It was originally the trailer bill 201. It's now effective. It had some technical cleanup and also officially getting our RDO member onto the board.
Any comments or questions on board members? Any comments from the board?
Thank you, Joanne, for your work on this.
So, I've just been told that it's time for lunch. We have a reservation, so we will